Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my talk. This is your phone spying menu. My name is Balazs Bucsay, Balazs Bucsay. That's where I live. So over the past 2 decades, I was doing IT security. In the past 15 years, I focused on research and consultancy mainly. Worked for multiple big companies you might know, NCC Group. That's where we were colleagues, and Vodafone. I started to learn assembly, which made me a software reverse engineer a long time ago when I was 13 years old. I usually do these talks around the globe. This is my hobby. I went to the US a couple of times, been to Europe more than a couple of times, and even to the APAC region, Philippines, Australia, and Singapore so far. I believe I'm a friendly guy, so if you like, just find me after the talk. I'm happy to chat. Here are a few icebreakers that you can use on me. I love to travel. I've been to more than 75 countries so far. I love to do IT security. That's why we are here. So I think that's a really good fitting topic. And also I like to do sports like kayaking, cycling, and hiking as well, and other stuff too. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please send me a request if you like, or follow me. And you can do the same to my company. Back to kayaking. Last year, I kayaked the Thames in length from Source to Greenwich. It was about 200 miles, 300 kilometers, 9 to 10 days. I loved it. It gave me a really different perspective of the city. It's really nice to see from the river. A little bit about my company. I founded Mantra Information Security 2 years ago. It's a boutique consultancy company. We do all kind of offensive IT security services, traditional pen testing, network, web, cloud, source code, and config reviews. One of the big things that we do is specialized trainings. I do actually software reverse engineering training. If you want to learn it from scratch, or you already have some knowledge, then I can teach you in a few days. I can get you to intermediate or advanced level. Depends on what you like. And also we do reverse engineering, and that's this talk about really. So this talk is the result of a joint effort with the Da Vinci Labs from Belgium. I was doing the reverse engineering on the software side. They were doing the hardware bits that I didn't have the skills then. That's changed. So we had Livio, who removed this chip really easily, read off the content that was the firmware of the Cisco phone that we analyzed. So at that point, we had 3 different Cisco IP phones in scope. One was the 6851, the second is 7841, and 8861. If you don't know these numbers, don't worry about it. These are just like versions of different phones, but they are using the same firmware. So we dumped the firmware from the chip. We downloaded the same stock image from the Cisco official website. So we had 2 different firmwares, same firmwares, but the running firmware that we dumped had the variables, the initialized data, and everything else. So it was a little bit more useful. And sometimes you find the stock firmwares encrypted. So that's not a nice way to start a research. Depends on. So we know that these devices are really well known. These are from Cisco, and I've seen these devices, including that one, around different offices. Probably you've seen these before. It's all around London City, all of UK, Europe, and the whole world. Basically, every financial institution use these devices at least at one point, and government offices too. So I had the initial mindset, which was totally wrong, that this is a Cisco product, or these are Cisco products, so I'm not going to find anything. This is a huge giant that must be secure, and these devices, since these are widespread, they are used everywhere. These must have been tested several times by quite a few people. So my baseline was, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more at the end of the presentation, my mindset was totally different back then. Probably it's still affected. I thought that I won't be able to find anything at all because it must be secure, right? Well, these are the phones that we tested. This is the 8161. Hands up if you've seen this before or similar to this. There you go. I'm pretty sure you've seen this because it was front of you all the time, all of these presentations. And this one is the last one, 6851. So these are different series, but all of these three series are using the same firmware. So the hardware is a little bit different. You can see that some has colored LCDs, others don't. There are slight differences as well, but basically they use the same firmware, so the functionality is kind of the same. There's a different series, 8851, which wasn't tested by us, but this series is using the same firmware. And guess what? Do you know this guy? Biden, right? Those two phones there are 8851. Might be using the same firmware, probably not. That's a big question there. And good news. Trump is using the same devices as Biden. This picture is from January, so it's quite recent. There are slight differences to these devices. I'm not going to lie. There's a key expansion unit at the back of these devices, so you can generate cryptographically secure random numbers, and that helps with encryption. So that's a big plus. But usually those are not coming with the device. So the reality was quite different. I couldn't be more wrong. In 5 to 10 days, I found quite a few issues. These are the three that got CVs assigned, right? So let's go through them. The first issue that I found, it wasn't even assigned a CV. It's an authenticated issue. If you go to this URL, /log/messages, then you can get the var log messages file. If you know Linux, Unixes, then you know that that's one of the logs, and you will find a lot of information in there. So basically, from fully black box testing, dynamic testing, we went to somewhat gray box because we got a lot of dynamic information from the logs, including crashes. So if you manage to crash a process on the device somehow remotely, you will find the debugger output, the stack traces, the registers, the stack, everything in the logs. So that's a gold mine for researchers. I really appreciate that. The other one, the first that got CV as a sign, was a denial of service, basically an authenticated buffer overflow, which we couldn't exploit for some reason. But what you could do with it, you could crash that process as many times as you like, remotely, right? And these devices have a watchdog service in them. And if something crashes more than 3 to 5 times, it's going to reboot the device. So what you can do, you can send the same request, the same payload over and over again, and you can put the device in a reboot loop, so you can make it unavailable for a long time or forever. There's another buffer overflow. Obviously, this is unauthenticated. What else? This is basically not a vanilla buffer overflow. It's for BSS. BSS is a segment in ELF binaries where you store the initialized data. If you store any sensitive data there, you can overwrite. You might be able to control the flow of the process. What I managed to do is basically I managed to overwrite some of the data that store the proxy details. So any HTTP requests that were sent after that went through my proxy, so I could intercept those calls, but it was quite limited. The other thing that you could do, it was basically the same stuff as before. You could crash the process, and the multiple times you crash the process, it rebooted the device, so you could put it into a reboot loop and make it unavailable, unusable at all. And the biggest one, I would say, is the information leak. It's unauthenticated. What else? Of course it is. It's basically a feature of the device. They just forgot to put authentication on it. You could start TCP dump, you could stop TCP dump on it, and you could download the PCAP file. if you don't know what TCP dump is, it's basically a tool in Linux or Unisys where you can intercept traffic on an interface or on all interfaces, and you can dump it into a file. So any network traffic that goes on those interfaces, you can capture it and you can store it in a file. Well, these devices are IP phones, right? So what do you do with them? You make phone calls. So if you can capture those, you might be able to replay those as well. So I think it's a critical issue. Cisco disagrees with me, but that's fine. So I put together a demo for you, just for the show. I hope it's going to work, so let's just praise to the demo gods. I wrote a few scripts, so you don't need to struggle too much understanding this. But basically, I'm going to start capturing the traffic. I need a volunteer who could pick the phone up, please. You can get a really cool sticker in exchange. Anybody, please? Thank you. Hello. Can I tell you a joke about UDP? Yeah, you wouldn't get it. Oh. Thanks. Cheers. That's for you. Thank you so much. So that was it, and I'm going to stop the capture and download the file. If everything went right, yeah, there is a Cisco PCAP here. It's Wireshark, probably you know it. And this is the stream. This is basically what happened. This is probably you, this might be me there, and I can replay it. So let's see. Hello, can I tell you about UDP?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get it.
Oh.
Thank you. There was a little bit of loss for some reason, I'm not sure why. But, yeah, that was the demo. So lesson learned, and basically the next few slides is going to be about that. That was the Cisco demo. I thought that I won't find any of these issues because it's going to be Cisco and it's going to be a well-respected company, but I was quite wrong about that. So there are millions of devices out there. I'm pretty sure that basically all bigger financial institutions have these devices. I reported these issues to Cisco in 2023, I think, end of the year. They managed to fix it in a few months, maybe 5. They released the patches in 1st of May 2024. But the thing is, there is no OTE or any automatic way to patch them. So I'm pretty sure that most of these devices are still vulnerable on the network. So I just want to remind you that these issues were found in 5 to 10 days in total. So I guess this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to go and find some more, I'm pretty sure you can do that. So I was really surprised about this. I told you that I am doing research for the past 15 years, and still I'm finding these issues, and I'm really surprised. So basically, here are a few questions that I'm going to ask, but I'm not going to answer because I don't know the answer to them. I'm just really surprised that I don't really believe, or I can't really believe that these issues weren't found before, right? So these are really trivial to find. If it wasn't me, it should have been somebody else. And also there is NSA, we know about them. They do all kind of research. I would be really surprised if they haven't found it yet. And still, the President of the United States using these devices. They say they use a different firmware, which might be true. I assume it's true. But if they know about these issues, they remove these issues, they left them in their firmware. So, it's really dodgy for me. Now, I'm not sure whether it's ignorance, incompetence, or something else. I don't know the answer to this. but also another question that it raises that what does it say about the state of the security in embedded devices, right? So if you can find these issues in any big vendor embedded devices, what could be out there? So yeah, I won't be able to tell you about the answers, unfortunately, but if you have an idea or you want to chat about it, I'm all up for it. So just find me after the presentation and I can give you a few cool stickers as well, if you like. So yeah, I wanted to pad my presentation a little bit about research. I hope you're okay with that. So I told you that basically I had this limited mindset as a researcher that I'm not going to find anything, and it wasn't easy to break through that. I just want to ensure you that if you want to do research, that's an easy thing to do. You don't really need knowledge to do that. You don't really need experience to do that. You only need a mentality. You need to be curious about it, right? So if you are more curious than fearful, then you are already a researcher. So you can go for it and you can do your own things. Just because you do research, it doesn't have to be super valuable. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. You just go for it, and anything new that you learn, and you are going to learn a lot of new things, is going to be a big value to yourself, and that's what it should mean. That's what it should mean to you. So that's why you should do research, really, not because of the fame or anything else. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy because it's research doesn't start with guaranteed outcomes. So basically you get, and I ballpark these numbers, but you get like 95% failures and 5% success. So every time you try something new, it's almost guaranteed that you are going to fail and it's not going to work out at all. Hands up if you tried bug bounty before. Just a few of you. So probably, have you heard about bug bounties? Yeah, most of you. Okay, so basically we kind of know that you can get paid really well with bug bounties, and we see those tweets, we see those people who earn millions with bug bounties, so why can't we do that? And I think that's one of the reasons why, because we don't have the researcher mindset. It's not like that they everything that they find get them paid. They are a little bit more successful or something like that. So if you tried bug bounty before, you know the grind. When you try to find issues and you won't find issues in 5 days, in 10 days or whatever, you might give up and you say that, okay, I'm not going to do that. But it might be that on the 6th or 11th day, you would find something. There is the imposter syndrome as well. I guess everybody has that to a certain level, including me. It just, it depends on how you manage it. If you give up everything because you have that, that's not a good way to do it. I understand why you do it, but probably you should work on that. The burnout is quite real because if you have so many failures, you will give up at some point. It's not that easy to do it. The reason why researchers do this is the emotional highs. So after doing 10 days of research and finding nothing, for example, you might find something big and that gives you a really high emotional high, right? And that's your achievement. That's something that drives you. Just a few examples in this research that I did in the Cisco device, on the Cisco devices. I found a few application services crashing on the device, which was a really good feeling. At least I found something. But then later I had to realize that these are not exploitable, or I can't exploit it because I don't have the tool set to do it. Sometimes when you do bug bounty, for example, you find a critical risk, you submit the bug, you wait for the big bucks to arrive or something like that. Maybe it's not about the money for you, but you are really proud of you that you found something, and they come back to you that they either ignore or reject your finding, or they say it's a duplicate, somebody else found it, and you don't get paid, you don't get the appreciation that you expected. So these are the emotional highs and emotional lows which comes with research, and it's not easy to handle. I already told you about the assumptions that I had about the Cisco devices. Basically, I have these all the time. I always think that I'm not going to find anything because these devices are tested by numerous researchers and internal teams and whatsoever. And I figure out that that's not always the case. Sometimes I think that, okay, this is a really easy test case to test, really trivial one. So I'm just going to skip that because, this can't be a bug. It must be patched. It must be fixed or whatever. And it turns out they didn't touch it, or they didn't do anything with it, or they just made a mistake by patching it. So whenever you have these thoughts, just ignore them and do your best. Also, there is this other one, trusted products or services. You might think that this is a trusted vendor like Cisco, but you need to ask the question: is it trusted by who? Right? Is it trusted by what? Why is it trusted at all? Because I would say Cisco is a trusted vendor, but you can see what kind of issues they have. And the last thing about this one, assumptions, just because it's a big brand doesn't mean it's secure. So keep that in mind. This is not my first presentation about research and my findings, and sometimes I find that this is what people see, right? You have the research on the left-hand side, that's the starting point, and you have the results on the right-hand side. And because it's two different points, people just connect it with a straight line. But this is not how it works. This is how it works, really. You do your research, you have the first idea, you do different variations of it, and you fail. You have your second idea, and you fail multiple times. Third, fourth, fifth idea, and out of 100 or 20 different ideas, you find one result, one vulnerabilities, and this is how it looks like. And this is just the distortion of reality, what people think it looks like. So I'm just giving you this information. Whenever you hear something in the news that some researcher found this, some researcher found that, and it's a trivial issue like this one. These are really trivial issues, right? But to get there, you have multiple steps that you need to go through. It's not always that easy to find these issues, even though the bugs are trivial. If you have people around you, or if you are a researcher and you need support, these are the things that you should expect from others, I would say. Just because something looks easy, it doesn't mean it's easy. So that's something that you might want to think about. Sometimes I feel jealous when I see these articles or presentations, but I need to remind myself that jealousy won't move me forward, won't drive me at all. So I need to be humble and I need to learn more. That's the only thing that will drive me forward. And feedback is really crucial, I would say. So if you find something really cool, maybe give positive research. If you think you can improve on that, constructive research, constructive feedback is going to help, because the researcher can learn from that. And there is the responsibility. As I mentioned, I reported these issues to Cisco, which was a good call because they fixed them. But sometimes you need to think about the bugs, who is going to be affected by them. Some vendors don't like to fix issues. Some vendors like to ignore reports, but you still have the responsibility. Probably it's up to the vendor, because they just want to save their assets. They just want to save money. They want to save their reputation, so they won't fix it, or they don't. They will just ignore you. But you have a responsibility to the clients. You might be a client to Cisco. Somebody else is definitely a client of Cisco, or to the end users. So you might want to report it in different ways depending on who you feel responsible for. So there are different responsibility. There are different disclosure techniques. There is the full responsible disclosure. That's what I did. I reported the bugs to Cisco. They fixed it in a few months, and these were all reported and patched. There is full disclosure. Sometimes you need to do that when the vendor is ignorant or they just don't want to comply. So you need to push your truth through by saving others from their ignorance. Non-disclosure, when you fed up with these policies and the processes and ignorant vendors, you might want to keep the bugs to yourself. And obviously there is commercial disclosure, like bug bounty and zero-day brokers, but that requires a different conversation. So yeah, closing notes. My message is, if you do research, never doubt yourself. Don't build up imaginary boundaries, because that's not going to help you at all. And one really important thing here is stop reaching out to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. So if you compare yourself to somebody else, that's not going to help you because there will be always somebody that is better than you. Basically, you won't be able to be the best of anything, even though that doesn't sound nice. And the last thought is that you should make time if you want to do research or if you want to learn anything new, basically, you should make time for it. You should waste that time on your research because that makes you learn about stuff. Maybe it's a waste of time, but after that, if you learn something new, you won't find it as a waste. So that was it. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hear.
Question on the phones. One of the debaters said you had to have the XML service enabled. Can I ask what it does and how you enable it on the phones?
Okay, so the XML service, by default, you don't need to have any kind of privileges. You can just log in and enable. If it's set up properly, then you need admin privileges to do that. And with the XML service, and actually that was by default on previously in previous device, previous firmwares, you can do a lot of remote management through that service. So basically, you can, I think you can update the firmware remotely. You can change the background. You can change the text. You can add contacts to the device. I'm not totally sure. It's a long list, and it was a long time ago when I looked into it. But there's quite a few things that you can do. Yes, please.
You went through the CVEs, but you said you're still discussing with Cisco about the TCP dump function. Most companies that I've seen will deploy phones where it's one Ethernet PoE to the desk, plugged into the phone. Laptop or desktop is then teed off the phone, the common use.
Yeah.
So if it's deployed in that mode, your ability to TCP dump on the phone would actually capture any traffic coming from that attached device.
I think the default mode how you run this is capturing the traffic on all interfaces. So it's going to be the PC, it's going to be the phone, everything basically that is plugged into.
Follow-up question, with the TCP dump feature that's in there, is it like I would find on the Unix machine where I can start tracking it down to say, I don't want to see this destination host IP. Now I'm thinking now of I just want to watch traffic into the domain controller or something like that if it's on an AD.
Yeah, so the feature is limited. I think you can specify the interface. By default, it's all interfaces and that's it. You can't specify anything else. But when you do the dump, you download it and you can filter it in Bioshock or whatever you use.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
So very special devices, I understand. Do you happen to know whether the vulnerabilities will be picked up by automatic vulnerability skills?
I'm pretty sure they won't be. No. I mean, if they do a version check on the firmware remotely, they could do it. They might do it. But yeah.
But there was not no version disclosure when you
there was no
version disclosure when you checked the firmware remotely.
Sorry?
There was no version disclosure, unauthenticated. That was possible.
Yeah, I think you can do that. So I think the possibility is there, but I'm not sure whether they implemented it in those products. I think you can do it. There was one more question. Yeah.
So you took the packet capture and you were able to get the audio of the phone call from that.
Yes.
Would I be correct in assuming that means these phones just transmit your calls entirely unencrypted?
Yeah. So this is not just the phone. This is a computer, right? You can configure it in so many ways, and VoIP protocols are really complex. My point is, by default, this is the default mode. So it's unencrypted, and that's a really good way to demo it. Obviously, you can configure it more securely. You can configure encryption on it, and that's why you have the key expansion unit on the devices in the Oval Office. So you can do that, and that's going to be more secure. But my question is, and I understand it was a good question, but my question is that do you want a secure device where you can't do TCP dump, even though if it's encrypted, or you want to have encryption and TCP dump together? So, there are different layers in security. I think there are two different layers here, not having TCP dump on the device and also having encryption enabled. So, yeah, you can enable encryption.
Just add a bit more to that. I'm unaware of any external entity PTT like BT or whoever provides your VoIP phones that does real-time streaming encryption. Companies can set it up internally if they want to. You always go to where you hand off to the PTT a session border controller, and inside you can have it encrypted. With this bit out there, the stuff you showed with Wireshark is very easily hit the tape. And even on your home BT home hub, if you've got a phone plugged into it now, you can possibly do the same thing on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, even if you have questions or you come up with it later, I will be around for the full day, even in the after party or whatever it is. Feel free to find me. Thank you so much.